Welcome to Discover Wellness with Dr. David. I'm really excited here to be talking today with Ryan, who's a holistic nutritionalist. I'd love for you to just take a second, Ryan, to introduce yourself, tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, what your expertise is, and then we can dive into some questions and then touch on anything else you'd like after that. So first and foremost, tell me about yourself, Ryan. What do you like to do? What is it that your job is, and what are some of your main focuses in that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. So I'm really excited to be here. So like you said it pretty well, I'm a holistic nutritionist. I'm actually a certified nutrition coach and a former trainer as well too, personal trainer. What I do for people is I build them holistic nutrition and fitness programs that will really just help guide them to transform their health. This is my passion for nutrition coaching and consulting is what led me to create my business, Trident Transformational Health, which Trident said I want to focus on a holistic approach that's mind, body, and spirit. It's not just your body transformation like you see from a personal trainer. So creating that's basically what led me to just lead people to transformation of total health, and that's kind of my goal. And just spreading that as much as possible is what I've been wanting to do.
Well, I absolutely love that answer. That speaks to me a lot because I think a big problem that we have in today's society is that we take a very myopic view of the problems in regards to health, and the doctor will just prescribe a pill and consider that job well done and slap their hands and call it end of day, and then just send you off on your way with a medicine that may have effects later on and not tell you to exercise or eat better. And so I think it's really important what you do, helping individuals take charge of their health and improve things in a meaningful way. So how long have you been a holistic nutritionist?
Right. So as far as my certifications go, just more so in the past year, I've started probably it's over 5 years now. Where it really started for me was I actually when I got to college was looking for just for a part-time job. So I'd always been big into the fitness community by that point, and I knew all about supplements. I've always said, even when I was in high school, I could see myself working at GNC, something like a supplement place. So I ended up, it worked out well in my first year of college, and that's kind of where I started. And I was there for about 3 years, and that's really what opened me up to the power of nutrition and just really how much we were missing in the medical side of things. And just after 3 years of that, it just really showed me how much like these diseases and all these things we were trying to treat really just go back to deficiencies and that are caused by our environments. So that's really where I got a large part of my practice. My biggest regret I always say is I didn't get enough testimonials. So when you have people coming back in every single month saying, hey, I lost this weight or I solved this problem, I wish I would have had the foresight to go ahead and get those testimonials down to show people the power of it. But that basically said, doing that for so long, it really just led me to do it on my own. At the time, I actually became a personal trainer as well too. I've always been passionate about fitness, and that even more so just showed me the powers of our body and how much we can truly heal ourselves. That carried over, and of course, when the pandemic hit, that's actually where I decided I just graduated as well too. So it worked out well, and I stepped away. That's when I tried it. I tell people that's when Trident started, which was last year. But I kind of postponed it for a while. Kind of just it was more of a dabbling at the time. I didn't really take it seriously. I knew it was what I wanted to do, but I didn't really know quite how I was going to do it. So that led into, of course, this past year. So it was all right. This is something I've got to do, and I've done it. I think that's yeah, exactly it.
Oh, I absolutely love the dedication, and I love that you have a mutual interest in this subject as well. And a couple of things I'd love to touch on what you said. You mentioned that you're very into supplements. In fact, you might have wanted to work at a GNC. I'd love to hear what some of your main go-to supplements are and what your recommendations are for people to take, as well as you mentioned that you take sort of like a holistic approach to nutrition itself. And what are some of the ranks in terms of importance that you put in terms of diet versus nutrition versus sleep? And where would you rank the hierarchy as
Right.
far as
Yeah,
that
that's
goes?
definitely. So taking a holistic approach, I would say there's no supplement in the world that can beat good sleep or sunlight. I put light up there as probably the number one thing we need for our body. Every single cell in our body is made to produce light, and that's how we create energy, and that is the foundation of our health. That's like without the sun, we would not be here. So I really do believe that getting sunlight is probably my first go-to to everybody. That's going to help with energy, sleep, inflammation, infinite benefits. And then sleep is typically second as well too, because that's when all of our recovery happens and the real benefits take over. But as far as supplements go, I said my goal is to first get it in your diet. But unfortunately, we live in America, we live in Western civilization, and about 80% of our minerals have been depleted in all of our soil. So we just unfortunately can't get all of these 102 minerals that we need in our body, plus all the vitamins in the right amounts as well too. So I do recommend getting, like, I hear a lot of people do fish oil for a good example, but I believe that the best form of fish oil is always going to come from fish. So if we can get that, I do focus on the diet first, but I said knowing certain minerals have got to be supplemented. I actually was kind of prepared for that question, so I brought them with me. Just my main two. The staple of any one of my programs for anybody in the world, whether you're a high performance athlete, a business professional, or even just a teenager, it's magnesium. Magnesium is something that I always say if you're not supplementing, you are deficient. And once again, we live in America, we're not getting it from our soil or from our food. And every single thing in our environment is there to deplete it as well too. Whether that be stress, whether that be alcohol, sugar, inflammatory seed oils, everything that we know and we like typically it depletes it. So
Basically,
I
all
brought
fast
that.
food is what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah, that's everything that looks like caffeine, like even if you put like nicotine, if you're smoking cigarettes and like that, it depletes it as well too. So I think that is typically the most essential mineral that people need. And it's actually got 3,146 different functions in our body that we know of right now. So it's like it's optimal to literally every single function in our body that's necessary. So what I do is I recommend multi-form saturation with magnesium to not only fill the deficiency, but to also treat the things that we use every single day. So it definitely takes more than one form because not everything that goes through our gut gets into the where it needs to go in our body. So the very first supplement that I could recommend to anybody, especially to athletes, is magnesium chloride spray. I can actually make this at home if you get the chloride flakes separately and distilled water. But the reason I recommend that over anything is because people hate swallowing pills. I know it. Over years, like I said, I always look for ways to kind of get around that. Like what's one less thing I can swallow? I can get it from my food, so it's simpler. But it actually absorbs up to 50 times better through the skin, anyways. Your skin is your largest organ, and it's missing the digestive tract, which breaks down a lot of the good properties as well too. So it's actually magnesium chloride oil is proven to work better than any painkiller. There are studies that basically compare it to every single, ibuprofen, Tylenol, Advil, whatever it may be, and it's got more than enough effects of that. It dramatically helps with cramps. That's like whenever we have cramps, it's just electrolyte imbalance. That's why if you see football players that have mustard or pickle juice on the sides, it's terrible. But that's something I gave to my grandpa. He was having some bad leg cramps, and I gave him that, and he just sprays it whenever he needs it, and it works just for that alone. But that carries over into everything else in our body as well too. Obviously, reducing inflammation, it helps improve digestion, it helps with stress, anxiety, and depression, and just the list goes. I can keep going on and on and on. So, so that's why I recommend the magnesium spray to everybody. I said, no matter what program they come to me for, whether it's like I said, athletes looking to improve their recovery and performance, whether it's people trying to reduce their stress and anxiety, improve their digestion, stop cramps, like I said, it's everything. But another form of magnesium I think is probably the best absorbed is the glycinate form. And I have that right here as well. You can get it from Vitamin Shop. But the glycinate form has got glycine attached to it, which will help it pass the blood-brain barrier and calm your nervous system much more. So I use upwards of 400 milligrams a night of that. That's kind of what helps me relax my muscles and my nervous system to fall asleep faster. So those are magnesium, the same benefits of magnesium, but just a little bit different form of it. Those are the staples of any program I recommend. I said I tell it that's can't get enough of it. But what I do is it's a form of nutrient therapy. And so what nutrient therapy for most people is, it's like the filling of those deficiencies. It typically takes about 3 to 4, even up to 6+ months. And the really way to do it with magnesium is kind of tricky because anybody who's gone to the Walgreens and gotten magnesium, they got probably the citrate form, which is If anybody has tried it, they know it's a laxative, and it's not always that fun. But
I can attest to that.
yeah, exactly. That's why I'd recommend you have to build up a bowel tolerance because it does relax your muscles, which is great. But when you relax, everything can flow through a little bit too easy sometimes. So that's why I recommend those forms specifically because it has the least laxative effect as well, while being the best absorbed. So the trick is to basically build up to the bowel tolerance over that 3 to 6 month period. And so not only are you accounting for I'm genetically predisposed to this deficiency, I've had this in my environment for this long, so I'm deficient even more so. But I'm also an athlete. I'm active, so I use it constantly. So we got to kind of determine the levels that are necessary. And if anybody's looking for a general guideline of what I would recommend, I tell people 5 milligrams of elemental magnesium, the actual element of it. It's not, whenever you have glycinate, it's not just magnesium per pound you weigh. That's typically a good standard, but you'll find that it's not the easiest thing in the world to do without really focusing on filling in the gaps. But yeah, those are the top two supplements I can recommend to truly anybody in this world, like whether it's stress, pain, performance, sleep, whatever it may be. So those are hard to beat.
I think especially right now, touching back on the first thing you said about sunlight, it's actually been shown that individuals that live in northern climates that get less sunlight in the latter half of the year actually have higher levels of depression than individuals who are getting higher amounts of sunlight, these UVB rays that are producing vitamin D in their systems. And not to mention, there's a huge correlation between COVID fatalities and vitamin D levels. And so I think it's something like 11% of your whole genome is affected by vitamin D, and it's now regarded as a hormone rather than a vitamin. So I don't think we can recommend enough. Like you said, sunlight is very important.
Absolutely.
Have you ever heard of? Oh, sorry.
You're fine. I think it's important to note that many people think we can replace the benefits of the sun with a vitamin D supplement, and that's just not true. It's really not. It's like the benefits of the sunlight goes well beyond vitamin D, which is on its own tremendous. And so the benefits of light itself, I always say there's no pill in the world that could ever come close to it. So for people who live up north, I still tell them get outside. Even if it's a cloudy day, you still get the UV rays. It's still worth attempting to.
I guess it would just take a higher level of determination and effort for those individuals just because there's less access to higher amounts of sunlight over shorter periods of time. But have you ever heard of something called magnesium threonate? That was another form of magnesium that I've heard thrown around, mentioned that it was passed through the blood-brain barrier, like you mentioned about the magnesium glycinate. It's supposed to help sleep. Have you ever heard of that, or do you know the
I have, yes.
efficacy? Okay.
I definitely recommend it as well too. I think we're probably going to get to it a little bit later about just helping people with performance and focus and energy. That's typically one of the go-tos I recommend. So once again, magnesium does help with absolutely. Whenever you have better sleep, you'll have better energy the next day. When you have less stress, you have better energy. But the threonate attached to it makes it even more so for focus. So that is a fountain, like, definitely. Like I said, those are typically the top three forms of magnesium that I recommend to anybody. So
Awesome. I'm glad we're getting so much useful information from you, tools for individuals to actually use in their daily lives. I think there's a lot of misconceptions and wrong information that's spread about the health and fitness community. And so I think it's a really awesome opportunity to clear some of the air there on that.
yeah, absolutely.
But I'll dive into some more of the questions here. So what are some of the biggest determining factors or personality traits that you've noticed in individuals in your experience that are able to lose weight and keep it off? It's very common in America to see like shows like The Biggest Loser, where individuals are able to lose tons and tons of weight. And then I think it's something over a 95% failure rate where they either put all the weight back on or go beyond the original weight that they started at. So what are some of those factors in your experience that are definitive of people that are able to achieve long-term weight loss?
Right. So I thought about this question for a good little bit. I wanted to make sure I answered it pretty holistically. And I think the number one environment for anybody is it's their environment. I'm sorry, I might say that wrong, but it's their environment. It's the people that they're around, whether it's their family or their friends. So if they're not on the same page as well, it's very, very hard for someone to, like, especially if, let's just say, a man's trying to lose weight, but his wife's not on board with it. It's very, very hard to convince him to continue doing this whenever it's nothing but bad things around him as well. So I really do think that's probably the number one underlying factor of it. But I really think it's individual per person, just like anything health related. I think a big part of it is lack of education, to be honest with you. Like I found the more I understood health, the more I wanted to apply it. And I find most people just don't understand it, so there's no like even thought to apply it. But I kind of got to a point. It's like, all right, I mean, I know all of this. I feel bad if I don't apply it. I feel like I'm doing myself wrong. Like it's just that a big part of it is education, inspiration, and motivation. Is what I would say. So a lot of times people need to have an inspiration to do it and be motivated, but educated to do it in the right and proper way with hopefully a proven strategy that works. But even more so, since I've done a few things, I think that one of the biggest personality traits that it really does take is the ability to delay instant gratification. I really believe that's like, especially in America, like where we're just anything we want is right there. It's immediate dopamine hit. I really think it's controlling things, and it really comes down to a balanced nervous system and this dopamine hits. But for the
With
people
social
who
media and our phones, the dopamine is constant, and that's almost the default. Just constantly stimulate that.
Exactly. And that's another reason why sunlight's amazing. It helps kind of repair that. But whenever we're constantly craving that next dopamine hit, whether it's from our cell phones, whether it's from food, alcohol, whatever it may be, whatever addictions are underlying, it carries over into food. For people who are trying to lose weight specifically, avoiding alcohol and sweets and all of these things that we know are not going to be good, it's hard and hard to do because it makes us feel good. So I really think being able to see the long-term goal of what you're shooting for and to be able to say, no, I might like it right now, but when I wake up tomorrow morning, I'm going to be, annoyed with myself. So I really believe that's a mindset people have got to understand. It's like, it's not going to be that short-term gratification. Like I see people, they come to the gym all the time for 2 weeks and they give up. Right? They just don't start going. They don't stick with it. And a lot of times it's because people don't see results. I found that most people, once they see results, like even just a little bit, it's addicting on its own. That's the real dopamine hit that I want you to have. And just like looking down, oh, I did lose 10 pounds, or like I said, I do feel mentally healthier. All right, this is working. That gives me the motivation to continue with it. And a lot of people, if they're not using a proven system or strategy, they don't get those results as quickly as they would like. And the last thing I put notes for this. I really want to answer it correctly. Pain. I don't think enough people I can give you so many people who have been through so much pain that they don't have a choice but to be healthy. Not only on a physical level, but an emotional level as well too, and like psychological. And like I said, I really believe that when some people experience enough pain, they don't have a choice but to be strong. They've got to improve themselves. And like a lot of times, pain comes from seeing your family members and the people you care about suffer. Like that was the case for me as well. So I saw what my grandparents were going through, and I was like, I don't want to be this in 30, 40 years. That gave me inspiration, motivation on its own, but like it hurt me to see. It really did. It's like I wanted to set a better example so my kids don't have to see that one day. But I really do believe that pain is something that people like. It's different for everybody. But like I said, that's can be the strongest driving force there is, and people don't really give it credit. And I said it's not the only thing. I don't think I think there's better intentions out there than to just transmute that pain, but I do believe that's a great way to do it, which is through your health.
That was a very, very nuanced answer, and I appreciate you taking the time to actually go through and prepare very, very excellent responses that I think are everything you said is going to be very useful for all of our listeners who may be wanting to improve their health situation but have negative influences in their lives that encourage them to continue their negative behaviors. Either others don't want to see others succeeding and it makes them feel bad about themselves, but sometimes it just takes removing yourself out of that situation. And we do have a very pain averse society. Everything is trying to take the path of least resistance. But those long-term gratifications of hard work paying off over a long period of time, I think that those experiences pay off in the long run and are much longer lasting dopamine hits, like you said, that are going to pervade and improve your life as a whole rather than the pizza, which is the high carbohydrate, high fat, huge dopamine hit all at once, and then you feel crappy in the morning. But thank you so much for answering. But what, if any, impact does meal timing have on adherence to diet in your experience, or is there any factors for that, or is that just very individual?
I say yes and no. I said it is very individual because it depends on the activity level and the lifestyle of the person. And so I'd say meal timing is not the end all be all for health. Like I said, as long as you are still getting the nutrients that you do need for your body to function, but it does play a role just by nature. So, for example, meal timing is very important for athletes who are just, if they're training hard, they need to have the right amount of carbohydrates in their body at the right time. Not only before, in the right time period before, so it's digested properly, but also during and after as well too. That's why I'm sure you've heard your protein shakes within, 45. I don't, it's not 100% true, but it is good to do it while your blood's still flowing. But meal timing is important, I think, more so for business professionals. I find a big problem that most people don't realize that, and just and once again, in America, carbohydrate heavy breakfasts and sugar heavy breakfasts, they give us a huge blood sugar spike, which is not optimal for anybody who wants to be focused and have energy throughout the day. Because I tell people, let's just say you had, hash browns and a waffle at 8 o'clock in the morning. By 11 o'clock, your blood sugar has dropped back down, and then you're starting to have cravings, and you got to eat again. Which for someone trying to lose weight, that might not always be the best option. But the problem is, an hour or two after that, that's when you really start to crash, and you've got no energy, no focus. You just need a nap. That's the only way you're really going to get through the day, or an extra 2 cups of coffee, which on its own will create a cycle. But I really think meal timing is once again individual, but I think we can pick and choose the best times to have certain meals. Like I said, for example, if I'm exercising heavily, I want to have carbs mainly around my workouts. But I also want to avoid it to where I'm not carb heavy in the morning, so I'm not crashing halfway through the day when I have to be busy for the next 8 more hours. But I'm sure you've probably heard a lot. I know this is a common thing, not eating before bed. And there's two different ways you can approach that. You can approach that as in have a high protein breakfast or dinner before bed, just meal. So your metabolism, your muscle protein synthesis is occurring in your sleep, which has got benefits on its own. You recover faster, you build more muscle, and you burn more fat. But for some people, one of the best things they can do, which I love myself when I am trying to cut a little bit of body fat, is intermittent fasting. Which, if you're not familiar with that, that's eating in a time restricted window, typically 8 hours for most people. I personally, whenever I do it, I fast in the mornings and I have most of my meals later in the afternoon. Right, because I'm working out in the afternoons as well too, and so I can just have more for dinner, and I'm focused during the day. But most scientific studies show that the best way to do it is to have a breakfast meal and to skip your dinner, so your body it's not digesting food in its sleep, so it can go towards repairing the rest of the body. So there's two ways you can really go about that. I would say if you're leaning towards more the athlete end of people who are trying to recover, trying to perform their best, protein before bed never hurts. But if you're just someone who's looking to improve overall metabolic health and improve your mental health as well too, and just balance out some hormones, I think intermittent fasting or just time restricted eating where you have certain meals at certain times works really well. And I also think that having set meals for people, it keeps them on track too. I think that's why it can be important for people who are really busy. They're all right. If I can have my meal at 12 and 6, or whatever it may be. So I think it's great to have for consistency, but it's individual to every single person.
I find it absolutely crazy that the quote unquote American balanced breakfast is waffles with syrup and then a piece of toast and then wash it down with a glass of orange juice. And that's just a recipe to be tired by noon.
I was like, I can't. They used to have us eating pizza and milk at 11 o'clock in the morning in school.
I
it's
remember that it was Little Caesars pizza every single day.
it's
And
terrible.
we wonder why 43% of Americans are obese as adults, which is absolutely mind-boggling. And another reason why it's so important that we get some of this information out here. But like you said, for me personally, I find skipping breakfast and just eating 2 meals throughout the day. If it's a heavy workout day, then I'll eat a third meal, but it's just very much so more time conservative. If I'm having a busy work day and I need to get things done throughout the day, to just restrict my eating to a window, and I'm not thinking about food constantly throughout the day. And it's a much more efficient way to be able to cut calories without having to be as methodical throughout the entire day of am I eating this here and then this here and then this here. But I think that that's really correct what you said, that it is individual per person, and there's no one right answer entirely that'll work for every single person.
Mhm.
But what are some of the differences in nutrition you would recommend to somebody trying to optimize their physical performance versus someone who is just looking to lose as much body fat as possible? I know you mentioned for athletes eating protein for before bed was excellent for recovery, but what are some other things that athletes can do compared to what somebody just trying to lose as much fat as possible will do?
Well, interestingly enough, I feel like there's a lot of crossover similarities between the two. For example, I think a huge part for athletic performance, just overall in the gym or athletes, is hydration. Like we've got to keep ourselves hydrated, which is another reason magnesium is huge for getting the water actually into your cells, which is why sodium and potassium are also essential to have balanced out as well too. So like you said, high protein diet is number one, and hydration that goes for whether you're trying to lose weight or be an athlete and perform well. So those, like I said, even proper water intake will help with fat loss. Um, I think the main difference really is going to come down to if someone's trying to lose fat and body fat, they need to be in a caloric deficit. They need to be taking, basically, their body needs to be burning more calories than what they're putting in on a day-to-day basis. But for most strength, athletes, high performance athletes, or anybody just strength training heavily, most of the time they're going to want to be, unless they are deep into a cutting phase, they're trying to be in a slight surplus because they want to have the most that their body can have and to maximize their workouts and performance. So when I say caloric surplus, I mean their body is taking in a little bit more calories than what it's burning throughout the day to account for the fact that as an athlete they're going to be burning a lot more. And that's well, I think a lot of people who are trying to burn body fat, they love the low carb diets, and that's why keto is very popular. And I think I do like it a whole lot myself. But I would say for people, it's like I don't think you can go high carb, low fat, and high fat, low carb. Either one works as long as you've got high protein and hydrate and the rest of the things, your sleep, your sunlight, your water. But I really believe with a performance athlete, they're going to want a higher carb diet on average. Um, that's just because repleting the glycogen is going to be the number one thing. It's just glycogenesis is the word, and then muscle protein synthesis. So you're going to want to have to continue that. If you're trying to maximize your muscle, I recommend, like I do, as much as I prefer to have my just 2 meals a day and my fasting period, which is so much easier. Eating a protein meal every 3 to 4 hours is optimal to keep your hormones correct, anabolic. But really, I think it's the main difference between the two is just if you want to have a high carb or a low carb. Like I said, and it's like I said, slight surplus or deficit, but the rest is the same. You should still be sleeping 8 to 9 hours. You should still be getting plenty of water and electrolytes and protein, and you should still be doing plenty of compound movements and lifts that stimulate your hormones.
Well, that is interesting then, how many different parallels there are between those two different groups of individuals. And maybe you'll find yourself in those two camps at different periods of time. Like if you're in a bulking phase, then you'd probably focus more on the surplus. And then if you wanted to cut again, you'd probably lean more into the calorie deficit. But that brings me into something I'm really excited to ask you, which are we hear a lot nowadays about carnivore and vegan diets. Both of those, just on the surface, sound a little bit extreme to me, just because, from what I understand, there are different nutrients that we get from both of those food groups, and excluding one entirely most certainly can't have no effects whatsoever. And so I'm very interested to hear what some of those effects may be, and what are some ways for either carnivores or vegans to mitigate some of those nutritional deficiencies, or is it something they should just avoid entirely?
Right, and that's of course Especially by the time at GNC, I've had to work with people who are completely plant-based, vegetarian, vegan. What I personally recommend is an ancestral diet, whole food diet, of course. But I don't believe that once again in America, we can get all of our nutrients from plants alone, especially protein. Enough protein to be an optimal athlete is very, without supplementing consistently. Just to list a few things that are in animal foods that we really won't get completely from plants. I kind of wanted to make sure I had a comprehensive. Omega 3s are a huge part of it, getting the good fats from meat. But CLA, if you're not familiar with that, it is conjugated linoleic acid, which is it's an omega 6 technically, but it's one of the very few that are really, really good for body composition. And it does help with weight loss, body recomposition, and a few other things as well. But what people don't think about often is the mineral content and the vitamins that are in these meats, specifically all of the B vitamins, B1, 2, 3, 6, and 12. But also, when I go back to minerals, your iron, your zinc, your selenium, your potassium, magnesium, and sodium. Hopefully, if you're putting salt on your steaks. So, yeah, there's so
Oh, I
much.
thought
And
salt was bad.
your creatine, which is great for athletes as well. But yeah, there's certain things that animals don't have that plants do. For example, I think sulfur is a very important compound that most people don't realize, and that's why broccoli and just cruciferous vegetables are great for that. There's a very popular supplement right now is liquid chlorophyll. That's just it's good for the blood and a whole lot of other things, but it's just at a micronutrient level, we need both, is my personal opinion. I'd say get as much as you can from plants. Predominantly, so if you want to even juice, like grind them up and juice them, fantastic, go for it. But I don't believe we can get everything we need without animal foods. I really don't. And I think it's also important to note that whenever animals digest these plants, they are actually breaking down all of the toxic, like heavy metals and toxic things on them as well too for us. So it is more ready for our stomachs to digest, and it's less toxic metals. So I really think that's an important thing. And I always just try to think back and say, if it wasn't there 1,000 years ago, do we really need it today? I think returning to our ancestral, like they had to have, we evolved to have meat to survive. I guess there's no way around it. We have had that, and especially I think if you're trying to optimize your musculoskeletal system, is even more important. But I think what's more important than plant or animal is the source. I really do. I do believe that unwell sourced meat is worse than anything. To be honest, worse than like not getting it at all. To be honest with you, it's just all of these things added to it. These hormones, like they're even whenever it says grass fed, it's rarely ever what we think it is. To be honest, so I think the sourcing of your animal meats is more important than anything. Getting 100% grass fed beef and 100% wild caught salmon, and that's really because I do care about the animals. I care about how they're treated and the welfare. And so I always recommend going to the farmer's market and trying to get something from there if you can. But yeah, there's a whole lot of stuff out there, a whole lot of propaganda that push for, like, if you look at what's going on right now, they're trying to push us away from meat, from what I see, towards more of a synthetic meat and beef in a way, and more towards plant-based. And as a skeptic and who's seen over basically everything they tell us about health is usually wrong in some way or another, it's pretty hard for me to believe that's what we need to be optimal. I really do. You got to think in a system that makes money off of you being sick, or why would they advocate for the real solutions, which it's not the end all be all. But yeah, I hear both. I think it takes a combination of both. I really do. I said, if someone does want to stick for religious reasons, especially, I respect that and understand that as well. I can still work with it. But to be optimal, they're going to have to supplement in America. It's just the truth. They're going to have to get some plant-based protein shakes, preferably after their workouts. They're going to need all these vitamins, all those B vitamins I listed, your vitamin A, all of your amino acids, like just to get a complete profile. It does require supplementing. And even if you did have a perfect diet, so you had the best source meat there was every single day, and you grew all of your own plants and they were perfect, you're still not getting all the minerals that we can have and to be optimal in our diet. So I think it takes a combination of both plants, animals, and supplements to be optimal.
And it sounds like if somebody wanted to devote their whole life to eating a healthy vegan diet or a healthy carnivore diet, including lots of supplementation, it may be possible. But for most individuals, it's going to be so much easier just to incorporate some of those healthy food groups from both options, those grass-fed, grass-finished beef, or those responsibly raised meats and organic plants. I think, like you said, the sourcing of the food is very important when comparing factory farm food and meats compared to sustainably wild caught fish. I think that's a big distinction as well. And something I was interested to hear your opinion on, salt has been sort of demonized in our society. Low sodium products, you see them everywhere. Should we be afraid of salt, or is that
Oh,
just a bunch of hot air?
I want people to love salt like they love their wife. I can't recommend it. I've actually so one of my favorite, I can never pronounce his last name, Dr. James Nicole. I can never. He wrote a book called The Salt Fix, and also a book called The Mineral Fix, which I it's an encyclopedia this thick, and I loved every page of it. So in his book, The Salt Fix, he basically explains that the whole sodium problem was pushed right, like I said, oh, it's causing all these issues, just like fat free and cholesterol were, the solutions as well too. But the problem was never salt, and it never has been. It was sugar. It was industrial seed oils being incorporated into our American diets. But sugar was what was causing the inflammation and all of these heart diseases and issues and strokes and everything we see today. Salt is something that is essential for everything. I cannot express it enough. It is what balances out the cells in your body. It is what makes your muscles contract. It is Salt is there's a reason that it was so prized, thousands of years ago. That was like a commodity, and there was literally wars over it because it is that essential to our health. I tell most people to be optimal, you need basically no less than 3,000 grams, but no more than 4,000. So that's three to 4 grams a day of salt. But I think once, just like with the meat and the plants, sourcing matters too. If you go and get just the table salt, it's just fake iodine that they literally take out the real iodine and put fake iodine back in there, just to sum it up. So I'd recommend getting well-sourced pink Himalayan salt or well-sourced Celtic sea salt. So you're actually getting pure sodium of it. And like I said, I cannot express it, especially as an athlete. If you are an athlete, sodium, like you've got to have it on everything. But it's like I put a little bit of pink Himalayan salt of my amino acid drink as well because it gives you a better pump. It helps with the contraction, and like I have much better workouts when I have my sodium. But that's one of the electrolytes that leads to dehydration. So every time you go sweat, you're sweating out sodium. If you use bathroom, going out that way too. And we need it for so many different things in our body, and it regulates so many other things that I cannot believe it's been demonized the way it has been. I really can't. It hurts to see.
Well, you were very eloquent in your whole description of the importance of salt. And something interesting I heard as well is coffee is actually a huge salt depleter, and that's something that most Americans drink 3 or 4 cups of every single day. And so then that would drive your salt requirement even higher. And most Americans are now avoiding this 3 to 4 grams that you mentioned. So I think it's really important that individuals, especially athletes who are depleting a lot of their sodium during exercise, are actually getting proper intake of it. Um, but what are some of the foods and supplements that you're aware of that can boost cognitive performance? I know you mentioned magnesium threonate can improve focus. Are there any other supplements that you use as nootropics? And what are some things that you do to optimize your mental performance on days where you might have to take a big test or do something that's going to require a bit more of your present mental state?
Right. Well, before I do recommend the supplements, I got a good little list full. I think it's important to, once again, with the holistic approach, to look at the diet as well too. So if you're trying to reduce brain fog, which we've all had it, we all know what it feels like. You have to reduce inflammation is what it really comes down to most of the time. But it's also, the number one thing I put down. I said I wanted to make sure I hit my points right on this, was managing your blood sugar. I touched on it earlier, but if you have that carb heavy breakfast, or even like if no matter what time it is, if you have all those carbs and sugar and you're just weighed down by a big meal, your brain's already foggy. Like I said, that blood sugar is crashing and you're tired, you're fatigued, and you just don't want to be there in the first place. So I think keeping that in mind, and I would say you're technically your best, as long as you're hydrated, you're best focused whenever you're fasting. And so that's why I do love intermittent fasting. I focus in the mornings. I can get stuff done before and then my meal is my reward. Like I said, we're trying to reduce inflammation. So once again, it does take a holistic approach. A very popular supplement that people like to take for that is fish oil, which is EPA and DHA, which helps with eye health, brain health, heart health, joints, everything. And I like it, I do. But I have learned recently that the DHA that is in 99% of fish oil supplements is not in the proper form for humans to absorb completely, opposed to getting it from natural sources such as salmon, eggs, or olive oil. So I do recommend if you need to take a supplement, do it, but make sure you've got some salmon in your diet at least, or some fish. So that's going to have the right form of it in a very high amount as long as it's wild caught. And going back to what we were saying, sunlight. If I have, let's just have a test in the morning, I'm going to wake up and get some sunlight and be hydrated. I'm going to have at least 2 glasses of water or more, depending on what I got to do that day, because hydration is a huge part of. Even 1% dehydration can lead to mental health problems. Even just a little bit of your cells being said. I think that is essential. Is just getting the light on you, getting your cells hydrated. And another great thing I recommend to people is breathing. People don't understand the power, like how powerful your breath really is at calming down the nervous system, but also for making it work better. If you're trying to focus on something, said you could. I remember I learned that actually. It's funny, in class when I was in high school. I was trying to stay awake in school. I had a carb heavy breakfast. I was always crashing. I couldn't figure out why, but I would sit there and try to hold my breath to get my heart beating. And that was the only way I could stay awake, was by holding my breath in class until my heart would start pounding a little bit faster. But I've actually downloaded this app called Breathwork, which walks through different forms of breathing techniques, and it has tremendously helped me out with focus, energy, and just managing stress throughout that time as well too. But so going back to supplements, I said fish oil is most common, but I do recommend getting a higher omega-3 diet without the supplement. But my main things for focus I recommend, when I was trying to come off of coffee myself, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's called mud water. It's got a combination of a few different mushrooms is the main thing, and my favorite is lion's mane. Lion's mane is amazing for anybody who's got nerve damage or neuropathy, but it is the best thing for memory as well too. Like, I always say, whenever I take it consistently, I literally have memories come up from when I was probably 3 years old. I just never remembered, but it just triggered it, you know? So lion's mane and cordyceps is a popular one as well too, and just there's a whole array of mushrooms out there that work great. So I personally get it in my tea, my mud water, but there's other forms of it as well too. And then like I said, I put down that magnesium threonate as well. Like, I cannot recommend it enough. But a really popular thing I like to combine with magnesium, especially for sleep, is L-theanine. I'm not sure if you ever had green tea, but if you notice, green tea doesn't make you jittery like caffeine or an energy drink would. It's because the L-theanine, it's an amino acid, it keeps the heart rate down. And it also protects the heart and the brain from any damage from caffeine or any other stimulant. And on top of that, it blocks off it's called glutamate, which is the main excitatory neurotransmitters, where it basically just gets you stressed out, and that's the best way to put it. And it blocks all of that off, so it's not causing those issues. So it keeps your heart rate down, so you're not anxious. It keeps your stress down, so you're not, worrying the whole time. And you can sit there and still be focused with the magnesium. So that's probably my go-tos right there. But another popular one I've used, and people like it a lot, is ginkgo biloba. It's an actual herb from a tree, the ginkgo tree, but it basically helps with blood flow to the brain, which is fantastic. That's when you have more blood flow and more nutrients going there, more air and oxygen, it performs better. So those alone would work wonders for most people. But I will say this: one thing that has been proven, whether good or bad, that does boost cognitive performance is caffeine. So it's funny. It's like everyone knows that. But like you said, exactly, coffee or any other caffeine stimulant, it depletes everything. B vitamins, magnesium, it increases your heart rate, technically damages your nervous system a little bit as well too. So it's a trade-off, but I do believe if, 1 cup of coffee is not going to be the end of the world. It's the people who are doing, 400, 500, 600 plus milligrams a day right before they go to sleep. It's in there interrupting their sleep. So then it's just a cycle they need the next day to keep going, and it creates a cycle. But caffeine itself, like I said, not only is it great for workouts, that's why it's in all the pre-workouts. It's a natural fat burner, so it will boost your metabolism, but it does help perform cognitive performance. I just think it needs to be used very wisely. I,
Now, for individuals that love coffee, and I have heard there are some benefits from coffee, and I think a lot of that comes from the polyphenols in it. Is there a risk to drinking decaf coffee? Or are you kind of mitigating any of the damage you'd be getting from the caffeine and still getting the benefits? So, can individuals who enjoy coffee still have decaf and not really have to worry about that?
um, yes and no, I guess I would say. Yes, being that, and where a cup of coffee is just that's your ritual, and it's what gets you going. I think the placebo effect will probably take a little bit of control. And like I said, I'm not if it's not broke, don't fix it, as I always said with things like that. But technically speaking, without the caffeine, it's not going to have that neurostimulant effect. So there are definitely. I recommend green tea to anybody who wants a hot drink that's still caffeinated. So green tea's got nothing but good benefits to it, fat burning effects, and still gives you the focus without the jitteriness of coffee. But for anybody who does have coffee, I encourage them to try mud water. I do. It's a little bit different tasting. It's got a few other things in there, but it's great for every health benefit, and it's about 1/7 of a cup of coffee in caffeine content. So yeah, it's decaf. If you're throughout the day, so the only thing is if it's actually decaf, it's not harming you the same way, but it just depends on what you want to do.
Well, fair enough, and thank you so much for having such a complete answer on all these questions. And something else, I take lion's mane and I take L-theanine, and I can't recommend those enough to anybody who would like to boost their memory and boost their focus. I have excellent anecdotal experience with both of those, and it sounds like from what you're saying, there is some actual science behind that as well.
A whole lot, especially for L-theanine, a whole lot. Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Well, what are some of the biggest obstacles most individuals that you see have to overcome to lose weight? You mentioned some of them are their environment and the individuals that are around them that may be negative influences. Are there some other things? I know you mentioned being pain
Well,
averse as well.
reality is the other thing. Reality, everyone knows, like I said, you have a little motivation, a health kick comes along, and you're doing good for the first week. Then reality sets in. Like you still have your 9 to 5, and so you got most of these people have got not only a 9 to 5, but they've got kids, so they have to take to school and get ready in the mornings and the afternoon. They got a wife or husband, whatever it may be. And they've got all these other responsibilities, and they've got bills to pay. So I understand that it is very, very hard to balance everything at once, every single day. And I think with just time and energy, like energy, it's to have energy to do all of that. It's hard on its own, especially to a man who's 40 plus years old with declining testosterone. His energy is falling by the day. It feels like, and you combine that with lack of sleep and sleep issues, it's even harder. So I definitely get that. It's very, very hard to balance it all. But I think the main thing that keeps it there is the consistency, and like having a strategy that actually you can track and measure it with as well too. Like I was saying earlier, results are addicting, and I think whenever you can literally see your results, you can see like, all right, I track this. For example, if you're at the gym and you started out at this weight, and a month down the road you're 100, 50 pounds more, whatever it may be, that's progress that can keep you coming back and say, all right, now I know this works. So I really think that's a big part of it, just being patient with it. But the biggest obstacle, it really is just life. We all go through it. We all have days where we're not as motivated. I think you just gotta get back up on the horse, And like for me personally, it's like I'm very busy. Like exercise and nutrition and cooking is kind of the glue that holds it all together for me. It helps me keep my stress and my mental health in check, so I can perform better for all my other responsibilities and tasks. So no matter what, will make time for it. But I can't go every single day. I don't expect people to. I don't ever recommend them to. Okay, it's not realistic, and it puts too much stress and pressure on people. So I really think the biggest obstacle is that it's time management and just energy to do so. But if they have a proper program that's built to adjust to that lifestyle that is preparing for that, it's much easier to maintain in the long term, opposed to just going all in, 6 days a week and burning out after 2 weeks and then not getting back on it. But like I said, my biggest rule for myself is don't go 3 days without working out. and don't have three bad meals in a row. It's like I'm not 100% perfect myself either. I don't recommend anybody should be. I think the 80-20 rule is relevant to a lot of things in life, but I really think that's what keeps people to help overcome these obstacles, which is once again just inconsistency and managing time. That's a great way to be lenient but still get results down the road.
Well, I think anecdotally, at least, if I push myself too hard in the gym and then I am too tired to go the next day, and then I'll find myself skipping multiple days in a row. But if I keep a relatively consistent pace that I can maintain, I create a positive momentum, and then I almost don't even have to think about it. It's just routine, and then I crave that good feeling that I get from going to the gym. But it can be really hard to start good habits like that, especially when you have this immense pressure and this everything going on in life that prevents you from being able to devote the time and energy required to learn a lot of these things. But what are some of the things that you've noticed? Is there a effect of being in too much of a calorie deficit, or can you just go as low as you want to go, or are there some negative consequences to that?
Right. I say too much of is a relative term. Like I said, just like everything else in this world, and especially in health related, is subjective to the person. And it really is. So, for example, if I have a client who is like 400 plus pounds and just severely overweight and has a lot of issues underlying, believe it or not, I've seen studies that people who are well over 400 pounds can survive a year without eating. Like, and their
Wow.
body will go through its own, like, don't worry, there are other factors as well too, which would make that miserable and not healthy at all. But my point is, it is relative. As some people, like, that's why fasting is kind of interesting, because really there's nothing but benefits of fasting up to 3 days. So technically your deficit's pretty big at that point. I think even just one day of 0 calories puts you in a huge deficit. So 3 days, so it's a give and a take. There's hormonal benefits to that as well, and whole mental health, and a whole lot of other things as well. But I think the main thing that people experience when they're in a caloric deficit is lack of energy. So calories give us energy. That's what metabolism does. It converts our food into things we can use. And I think, especially you see this a lot with bodybuilders and who are deep into a cut in competition. They're big caloric deficit. They're doing cardio, 2 hours a day plus lifting, and it takes a toll. But I do believe that with proper hydration, like I said, mainly there's electrolytes being balanced out in the proper amounts, with water, of course, as well. And then proper just micronutrients, which is mainly just vitamins, minerals, and some amino acids. I really think that your body will adapt to that low calorie, and it will still get by. So your body is very, very, very resilient. It can handle almost anything you throw at it. But for people who are wanting to live optimally, and they want to perform and they want to recover properly and just be mentally healthy, especially, you gotta pick and choose your battles. And being in a deep caloric deficit might not be the best, even if you do want to see your abs. Like, I get it. I know people who've done it, and there's reasons to do it, but for the most part, too much, you'll know when it's too much, in my opinion. I think you'll know whenever my performance is suffering, I am struggling to get by day to day. That's whenever it's not worth the trade-off.
Well, it's awesome that we have sort of a little indicator then of if we need a little bit more energy, then to listen to your body in that regard. Um, but as far as being in too much of a calorie deficit, I have heard that your body does adapt to a lower calorie intake. How long does that take?
Once again, it will vary. It really does, based off of, because once again, when you're adapting to the intake, your metabolism is adapting, which is really going to be based off of your vitamin and mineral intake. And so, for example, all the B vitamins are what helps us digest proteins, fats, and carbs. So if those levels are not balanced out properly, we might have a different reaction to someone who's filled up with all the vitamins and minerals. They don't feel any bad effects when they have less calories. But so I really do believe it's a holistic approach. People will get results depending on if they take the time to be fully hydrated, to get the sunlight, to sleep properly. Like I said, I think your body will adapt, absolutely. That's like, you see it across the world. There's people living on a fraction of what Americans live on a daily basis, of course, and they're alive. Like I said, their body's resilient. So I do believe your body adapts to it, yes. But once again, to be completely optimal, I would not recommend it to be in a huge deficit long term. I would not, unless you're planning on going from a deficit to a surplus and then back and forth to really just get the benefits of both.
So bulking and cutting and doing those in cycles.
Exactly. That seems to be the most efficient, especially if you are focusing on the physical and trying to build muscle, burn fat side of things.
Awesome. I think that's going to be really helpful for everybody listening. And what are some of your go-to foods that are very high in micronutrients and very low in calories that you deploy when you are trying to be in a calorie deficit?
Mhm. Well, the first one I would recommend, I think is the best superfood, is salmon. Wild caught salmon. It's got the highest protein content, well, one of the highest. It has got nothing but good fats that are anti-inflammatory, which is a huge part of weight loss is reducing inflammation. It's not just like the calorie deficit is huge, but inflammation and keep makes it a whole lot easier. And on top of that, it's got a whole lot of minerals like potassium. So I just think that is a very nutrient dense food that I love the taste of, and it's great after I get done working out. What I typically do is I have that salmon with potatoes. I'm not too picky about potatoes, but I like to chop them up and make little fries out of them in my air fryer, just spice them with everything. And the reason I do that is potatoes and salmon have got a lot of potassium. I am trying. Believe it, 98% of Americans are severely deficient in both magnesium and potassium. So I do look for natural ways to get that, so I don't have to supplement it as much. But another really popular food that everybody should have for breakfast every single day is eggs. Eggs are a superfood on their own. They really are. They've been. I hate to say they've been demonized. Like I saw someone try to say that it was equivalent to smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, and that just killed me. So there's a lot of propaganda out there that I can't say I believe in, but
Some
eggs
people
are
throw the
fantastic.
yolks away, which is where most of the nutrients are.
Exactly. So I recommend getting the whole damn thing. I really do. Like, just go for it. Like, and don't be scared of cholesterol at all, please. I was like, there's a lot of other factors involved in cholesterol, and truthfully said, for men especially, cholesterol is a good thing because when you have that with vitamin D, that makes testosterone, and that's a win on its own. But there's good and bad cholesterol. There's a whole lot of other things that go into that. But another superfood that I really recommend that most people are going to steer away from on this, but it's actually probably the number one most nutrient dense food is liver. Beef liver, cod liver, even chicken liver. It's not my favorite, so I only have about once a week, to be honest with you. Like I said, I'll air fry it. It's not that bad at all. It's really not. And so if you like onions, which I really don't, they go well together. But liver, there's a reason that like animals in the wild, like a lion, for example, when it goes to kill something, it's going to eat the organs and leave the muscle for the scavenger because it knows that's where all the nutrients are just intuitively. So I fully believe the best diet is an organ meat diet, wild caught seafood and organ meats, like such as heart and liver, even lungs. That's where all the nutrients really are the most of, and still high protein. So you're gonna have anything keep you satiated and full. And that really is arguably one of the biggest things about when you are trying to keep your calories down and lose fat is being full. Like when you have less calories, it's being satiated, and that's why high protein is so essential. It's the most satiating calorie, and virtually none of it turns to fat at all. That's why I was like, I'd always protein in every single meal, no matter what. That's a staple. But to get fiber, which keeps me full as well too, that's the second most satiating nutrient. Broccoli and kale were usually my go-tos, to be honest with you. I wish I had a more diverse vegetable profile, which that's where I feel the need to supplement in between. But broccoli and kale seem to do the trick for me. I use broccoli for a few different reasons, but that's my fiber to keep me full when I have that with protein, and I feel pretty well throughout the day.
A couple of things I'd love to touch on. First, I'd love to hear if you have some detailed information of farm raised salmon versus wild caught, because I know you said that it's important to get wild caught versus the farm raised. And something I've noticed is that the red color on a farm raised salmon isn't this deep, dark red hue that it is on the wild caught Alaskan salmon. So I'd love to hear what some of the nutritional differences are there. Uh,
Right. No, that's 100% right. Especially with the color. I had a post that summed it up perfectly. Like, I found it. I was like, I love it. It describes it. But the main difference for the listeners to take away from it is that it's got a better ratio of good fats of the EPA. And I was saying about fish oil, how the DHA, which is for your brain and for your eyes, is not the right form to absorb properly, but salmon does provide that. And it's just basically the content of farm raised versus that is exponentially higher. And yeah, they are fed natural things. The farm raised means that they are fed a diet, which is not necessarily is commercial, is the easiest way to put it. It is not meant for there. It's just like what you're feeding, pigs and cow across the United States. So not only is it being better fed and better sourced in general, but probably healthier water is in as well too. Just in the environment in general is much healthier. They're not being crowded together and they're farmed. But the main thing that I think about whenever I think is just the fat content. I really do. It's just that is exponential, having that much more EPA and DHA and keeping your inflammation down and your brain and heart healthy.
Awesome. Well, I love that answer. And what are some of your recommendations as far as where to go or what things to look for on labels when our viewers are going and shopping at grocery stores? What are things to namely avoid? What would you say the most important things are to avoid? Period. And then what are the you mentioned liver and salmon. It sounds like we covered most of the things to get. So what are the most important things to avoid?
Well, the first thing I say, if you can, shop local, go to farmers markets around you. They support the farmers, especially in what's going on right now. Just support the farmers and everybody locally can. They're much better sources of it as well too. I would love to sit there and tell you that organic everything is perfect, and that that's what you should shoot for, and you should. It's better than non-organic. I'll tell you that. But even then, the guidelines to be considered organic nowadays are incredibly low. It's very deceiving actually. So I think 100 you have to see the words 100% organic or 100% grass-fed, or essentially that's what you can actually tell that it is. And you should look when you're looking like for steaks and meat, make sure no antibiotics or hormones are added. Um, for example, if you went to like a food line, I know they've got their Nature's Promise brand there, and like I said, I'd love to trust that. Like it sounds great, it sounds perfect on paper, but once again, understanding the guidelines for just organic and not 100% organic, it makes me question a few of that. For wild caught salmon, if you've got a local market around you to go to, I strongly recommend it. There are typically ones within cities. But if you've got to go to a grocery store, once again, just make sure it's wild caught salmon, not farm raised Atlantic salmon. That's just a distinct difference. I'm not too picky about it. I typically go to Trader Joe's, but even that's not my favorite anymore. So just wherever you think you can get it the best. Like I said, the closer to the source, the better always, especially if you live near the sea or the ocean by chance, get it. It's right out of the ocean. Can never beat that at all. But yeah, the main thing is just looking. I do recommend organic and Whole Foods, of course, too. But that's another thing. Whole Foods, the grocery store, I would not recommend that anymore. Believe it or not, so I used to go there myself, and so once again, still better than a lot of other things out there. But just like I was saying, their guidelines for organic are not as truthful as what we'd like it to be.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it hurts. Like I said, everything you look around, oh, that will be good, but it's very deceiving.
Is that from them being bought by Amazon and if they lowered their standards? Because I remember Whole Foods used to be the I guess the name that everybody sort of strived to be like in that clean eating space.
I can almost guarantee Amazon had a good part to do with it as well. But it's just they basically had a whistleblower go on and say that everything like you think we say about that is not even anywhere close to it. But yeah, it's I always say if we had to be perfect with our diet, the only way you're going to get it is to hunt your own food and grow your own food. That's just it's the truth. Like I said, that's why I do like farmers markets, because at least I can hope that they've done that themselves. But yeah, it's very, very, very hard to get well sourced food. But if you got it, lock it down. I really do. Like, let's find someone local who can get it to you, and that it will make all the difference in the long term. It really will, especially as we can get towards more synthetic meat and beef, which I think is evil. I really do. Like so much propaganda out there. It is more and more important to make sure that your food is well sourced and from good sources.
Well, thank you so much for all of your time today, Ryan. And I'd love if you just give a couple of minutes to let the viewers know where they can find you, where they can reach out to you directly. It sounds like you offer some level of one-on-one coaching. So it sounds like this would be an awesome opportunity for you to be able to share with the viewers how they could reach you. And I'd certainly love to get more individuals one-on-one working with you and able to improve health that way directly.
Yeah, absolutely. So right now we were working on the website trying to make a few adaptations to, I guess is the word. But you can still go to my website, tridenttransformationalhealth.com, and there's on the front page there's a contact form you can fill out, and I will see that almost immediately so I can get back to you. If you wanted to, you're welcome to go check out my personal social media, my Instagram page. I do try to post things there, at least on my stories pretty consistently, just general health information. That's Ryan Chapman 1099. But just to tell you about what Trident, we offer both consulting and coaching. And consulting, the main difference between the two is consulting is for people who are really just needing a solution. And everyone wants a solution. I get that. I do. We all do. But most people, that's where I have to distinguish if you were looking to just be told what to do, and that's all you really need, or is it something that I actually need to show you how to do it, a proven strategy, and then motivate you, educate you, inspire you, and make sure you get the results you're actually looking for. Because statistically speaking, 90% of people who buy a course, they buy a book or anything like that, they invest in something like that, they don't finish it. They don't follow through with it. That's the whole idea of a coach, to be there. And so that is my main service that I do offer. So the consultation, so we do $80 for an hour consultation, and you will leave with plenty of information on that as well, just like we talked about today. So I want to give you that, but that's where I can kind of determine if you're ready to change your behavior to get the results. That is the biggest thing. I can't coach somebody who won't give up what's harming them. And I know that I would love to be able to. It's in my heart I want to, but I've tried to so many times. I understand that now. So that's what we're there to distinguish. Like, all right, is it just something I can give you one single supplement and you're going to be a whole different person, or do I need to do targeted nutrient therapy with a fitness program, mindfulness practice, daily, and continue the holistic approach to it? So that's something we have actually got a total health transformation. If you're interested in that, and that is it's a 3 month transformation. It's 1250 total. That's all inclusive, and I also say that includes anybody for your family as well too. If you've got, for example, at Trident, we target business professionals. Of course, like, the idea is we know that they're constantly busy all the time, so we can work with that. But as I always think, like, I would never charge a husband and a wife the same price. If that makes sense, and that'd be not right when they're both spending money on groceries and working out and supplements already. That would just be morally wrong with me. So I would say if I can help out your family as well too, that is 100% included in that 3 month price. So anything I can do for them, I would be glad to do it. But the main idea is with the total health transformation is that, once again, of course, I want to get your body transformed. Everyone wants to have a good self-image and a body free composition, and I love it. Me too. That's so I want to give you that, and that's why fitness is a huge part of that. But I care so much more about your mental health, your emotional health, and your general well-being. That's why I made Trident. I made it so that we could take a holistic, three-pronged approach to your health that transforms your in totality is the goal. And that's when you come to me for that. So if you've got any other underlying issues, I'd be glad to work with that. I can promise you I can give you something for everything. I always say, like, unless you need surgery or a broken bone, or I will say one thing I can't do, which I fully recommend and I swear by it, is chiropractic. I don't, like, that's something that people go to school for and it's amazing. I don't want to mess with your spine at all. But anything else internally related, that is included in that. And I said the majority of these problems, they take 3 to 4 months of nutrient therapy to really properly resolve. And that is why it is a 3 month program, so I'll have time to actually fulfill these deficiencies, build these better habits is the real goal. But the number one goal out of that is to make sure that whenever you leave those 3 months, you are prepared to do it on your own. You are not only just like getting the transformation, but you are educated as well too, and you're motivated to do it beyond those 3 months, even without me. And of course, I will always be glad to be available for monthly after that. I don't want to just leave you after those 3 months by any means. That's not my intention at all. But that's exactly the goal of the total health transformation, is to give you a transformation while educating you to do it for yourself and people around you as well too. So if you're interested in that, the best way to contact is probably just on my website right now. But if you want to reach out to me on social media, just shoot me a DM. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to help you out. I really will help out anybody who can help themselves out.
Well, I can't thank you enough, Ryan. It comes across so clearly just how much you care about individuals' health, and that everything you do and how much time you spend learning about all these subjects. I wish I had the time to just be a resource to somebody like my mom for whenever she has a health question, or what should she be eating, or what way should she be tailoring her lifestyle. To have somebody that she can rely on and call, and it sounds like you're just doing a really awesome service for the community here in a way way that's really needed across the board. A lot of depression and a lot of issues that people are experiencing that can just be fixed by taking this holistic approach to their diet and nutrition. And so I want to say thank you for offering that service to all of our viewers, and really look forward to there are many subjects we could have made a whole episode on, and so I'd absolutely love to have you on again in the future. And if you have that list of supplements, I'd love to put that in the comments for our viewers as well, so they can go out and get these for themselves. And everything that we can do, and everything we've talked about today has just been absolutely stellar. I couldn't have been more impressed by your wealth of knowledge.
Well, no, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. So I love it. We can talk about this all night long if you like. I really do appreciate you having me here, and I hope that the listeners and the viewers can really get a little bit out of this, and I'll be glad helping out going forward as well too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ryan. I think we're going to end this transmission here tonight. So thank you, everybody listening. It's been an awesome podcast. I look forward to speaking to you again in the future, and have an awesome rest of your night.
All right, David. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Awesome. That's a wrap.
Good deal.
And thank you again for coming on, Ryan. I really appreciated your knowledge and expertise, and you put a lot of those points a lot more eloquently than I could have without a tremendous amount of preparation.
I appreciate the opportunity for having me. So I just wanted to spread the word. So I actually had a question. Would you say that a lot of these viewers are in the local Raleigh area, or where are they located at?
I think a lot of the folks that we've networked have just been people that we know that have tuned into the podcast. We do have some viewers across the country. I think Will would probably be able to touch on this a little bit more. But I'd say predominantly 80% of the individuals listening to this will be local. As time goes on, I think that demographic might change a little bit. But certainly send me your contact information or your website link so I can put that in the comments of the video as well, so folks can reach out to you directly that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So look at the website. I want to give you probably give you about 5 supplements. I think would generally help the community as far as the rest. I want to make sure I can explain it myself, so it's a little bit more targeted.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate your time, and it's been fantastic working with you.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to recording another one of these. So let me know what your schedule looks like in the coming weeks, and we can prepare another set of topics and run through it. I think these are going to be really beneficial, and I'm looking forward to see the type of responses that we get, and certainly looking forward to see, hopefully you get lots of attention from folks in the local area who got to hear a lot of what you had to say today.
Yeah, well, I hope so as well too. I really would love to make an impact. That's what we're here to do. I feel like, it's like, if it's positive impact, I want to do it. That's exactly where I'm at. So I really do appreciate it.
Well, thank you again. And it sounds like we're both like-minded individuals in that regard. So I look forward to seeing the videos that come in the future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to all of them. It's going to be a good time, and we got a long ways to go. We're just getting started.
Right?
It's exciting. Well, it really is.
Have a great rest of your night, Ryan. I'm going to go have some dinner, high protein meal myself. maybe some salmon, actually.
All right, well, enjoy the rest of your night. It was great meeting you. Nice talking to you, and we'll be in touch.
Sounds good, Ryan. I'll talk to you later, and have a great rest of your night.
Take it easy.